So the Cavs have lost 3 games in a row and 5 of their past 8. And I'm starting to wonder just a little bit if there is cause for concern for this team. Not because I don't think they're still a serious contender, but they were so dominant through the early parts of the season that I think a slip up like this was probably to be expected to a certain extent. But it's been a bit, not huge, but a bit noticeable as of late. Like, they just looked outmatched against OKC last week in that marquee game, the rematch. They just didn't look very good. And OKC didn't even have either of their centers in that game either. They lose to Houston twice, competitive games, yes, but Houston overall, I would say, probably looked better. A loss to a Philly team that did not have Joel Embiid. Like, there's been some rough losses mixed in here recently, and it is a little bit concerning, I think, for this Cleveland team that has been so dominant, especially on the offensive end of the court for the vast majority of the season. Now, am I sitting here and saying that I think this team needs to panic and they need to make some sort of moves and try to get better? No, not really. But would I be opposed to them trying to make a move to get better? Absolutely not. I think there are some interesting topics to discuss with this Cavs team, and I want to break it down a little bit deeper in this video. So we'll start with just the simple stats. For the season, when you look at their shooting numbers, they are by far the best in the league. And I mean by far, which is almost a little concerning that they're this much better than the rest. Even after a recent slump, they're still a percentage point better than any other team in the NBA, at least, except for, I mean, the Bucks, it's 0.9, but still, everybody else, it's 1.5 basically and more, shooting the 3 ball. And then from the 2, like, it's not that big of a difference either there as well. They're percentage point better than every other team from 2-point range as well. That is a really big gap. And a little bit of a questionable gap, in all honesty, because that, I know it's a large sample size at this point, 45 games in, but it's rare to see a team that is this much better shooting the ball than every other team in the league. Like, obviously they're an elite shooting team, but it's not shocking that those numbers have kind of come back to earth as of late. And in this recent 8-game stretch, number one, you look at their 3-point percentage just in comparing to other teams since January 10th, which is basically when this last recent 8-game stretch started. In terms of 3 ball, they're right around the middle of the league at 36.8, definitely a clear drop off. And then from 2-point range, it's the same story. They're, again, right around the middle of the league in terms of 2-point field goal percentage, just outside the top 10, but still, it's a clear, noticeable drop off. And it takes their efficiency from what has been far more efficient than any other team to, again, a point where they're just hanging around the top 10. And look, yes, small sample size, but a little bit concerning for a team that does seem like they're extremely reliant on just outshooting their opponents to win games. I think Kenny Atkinson has done a phenomenal job. I think there is a lot to like about this roster. I think the development of Evan Mobley has been a big part of the growth of this team, and I think you've gotten a lot of success from role players as well. Guys like Ty Jerome and Karis LeVert having career years. You're getting a lot out of guys who maybe in the past weren't producing at this level, especially not in this type of environment for this type of a competitive team. And look, I think the dual center options basically of Evan Mobley, Jared Allen together, because of Mobley's especially ability to stretch the floor at a little bit higher level this year, has been or actually really a lot higher level. He's almost 3 attempts a game at 41%. Like, that's huge growth in his game. But while it's really, really impactful, I do kind of wonder in a playoff setting how that would work. And it puts into question as well, they got these 2 elite bigs, they play them together. And outside of those 2 bigs, their other big man is Tristan Thompson. They don't have a third big. Like, number one, that would be my biggest concern probably, is trying to add some sort of real backup center, just so they have an option if things were to go sideways. Because I don't think Tristan Thompson, in the case of Mobley or Jared Allen, getting hurt is a great option. I think that would pretty much just leave them with 1 center. Like, come playoff time, I don't think they're going to be putting Tristan Thompson in to play 15 minutes a game in all likelihood, unless they absolutely have to. And I think making a move to prevent that would probably be in their best interest. My honestly bigger issue with this team is I just think there's a certain level of overachieving from a guy like Karis LeVert, who's just played so amazingly this season. George Niang has always been a high-level shooter, but he's over 40%, has been really knocked down, especially recently. Ty Jerome, I think he's an underrated player, but again, 44% from 3, 56% from inside the arc. He has been a solid NBA player at times in the past, but it's never been like this. I mean, especially on this volume. And I just think, like, when you look at these numbers, You wonder about the sustainability of the production of the role players, and you wonder about the sustainability of the two centers and no other options at the big man position. Those two things really do concern me, at least a bit. Now, I like the fact that they have a lot of different role player options. They have more ball handler type options off the bench, like a Ty Jerome, although again, kind of like the center position, you have two primary guards, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, not really a true backup, although I do trust Ty Jerome as a backup ball handler more than I trust Tristan Thompson as a backup big man. But even with all those options, like let's say Okoro stops hitting 40% of his threes. That's way above his career high. Is he going to do that for the rest of the year? I'm not sure. Dean Wade's 35%. That might not go up that much. Max Strus around 38% feels about right, in all honesty. Like, I just think that they're playing at their peak, or have for the vast majority of the season at their peak. And look, that is a very high peak. But I do wonder about the sustainability of it as you get deeper into a season, as you look at a rotation that, in all honesty, despite having a lot of interesting, like fifth piece type interchangeable guys in LeVert, Strus, Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro, Ty Jerome, etc., you're so reliant on your four main guys that if any of those guys were to get hurt, I think you potentially could be looking at a team that would take a huge hit. Because I think, look, they're a lot better, in my opinion, than the Hawks. Was it 2014, 2015 Hawks that had four All-Stars and Paul Millsap, Al Horford, Kyle Korver, and Jeff Teague, and then Damari Carroll. Like, that team was versatile and had a lot of talent. But while the Cavs are a lot better than that team, there are some comparable things to that squad in that, similarly, two very good guards, two very solid big men, and basically four all-star caliber guys. But while they do have more of a true superstar in Donovan Mitchell, and even probably in the other guys compared to that Hawks lineup, you do wonder about how it's going to translate come playoff time. Because look, at the end of the day, when you look at the standings, the truth still stands that the Celtics are probably going to be the team to beat in the East, despite their struggles as of late, having lost 8 of their last 17 or whatever it is. There is realistically probably going to be a very, if I had to guess, the Eastern Conference Finals will likely come down to Cavs Celtics. If it does, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are going to probably have to guard Drew Holiday and Derek White, right? But then it's like, who are we putting on Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown? Are we putting Evan Mobley on Jason Tatum? Like, how are these matchups working? Do you trust their depth, or their four guys against the Celtics, like 6 stars with Al Horford? I almost wonder if they're outmatched. Now, is that a horrible thing? No, not really. The growth they've seen as a team this year is great, and it's not something that is you need to panic about or be super concerned about. But if I was the Cavs, I think I would be proactive in looking around for moves at the deadline. I wouldn't just sit pat and be happy with the team that has produced as well as they have for much of the season, because realistically, they are due for some shooting regression over the second half of the year. And realistically, they're probably due for some overall role player regression as well. And if that happens, all of a sudden, I think the Cavs could very easily look a lot more beatable. And all of a sudden, maybe we look at the Cavs in second round, they're in a really tough series with one of these Milwaukee type, New York type teams. They're not just going to cakewalk to the finals, cakewalk to even the conference finals. That's not going to happen. The East is a little bit too good for that this year, especially in the top 4. And I just think the Cavs might need to consider beefing up a little bit to have a serious chance to make a run at a title this year, because when you're this good, you don't want to waste years like this. And I think standing pat would kind of be accepting that to a certain extent. So I hope y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. We'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.